So today, we're going to take a look at something pretty cool, a new spin on the classic morality tale. We're talking about animated Islamic fables you can find right on YouTube, and they're really connecting with a whole new generation. And really, that brings us to the big question, right? In a world of endless clicks and streams, how do you actually pass on these core virtues like honesty and friendship? I mean, how do you get lessons about generosity and taking care of yourself to stick with kids who are, let's be real, just one swipe away from the next big thing? Well, the answer, as we're about to see, is this really clever mix of timeless wisdom and slick modern animation. So, to figure this out, we're diving into 3 really popular animated stories for kids on YouTube. We're going to see what they teach, sure, but maybe more importantly, how they teach it. We want to peel back the layers and see what makes these age-old lessons feel so fresh and, honestly, so important to kids today. All right, let's jump into our first story. This one tackles a virtue that's, well, it's as old as time, honesty. But the way it does it is anything but old-fashioned. It's super fresh and really creative. So it all starts with something any of us can relate to, a little fib. A young boy, his name is Shazane, didn't do his homework. And to get out of hot water, he tells his teacher, "Oh, I forgot my copy at home." Yeah, it's that classic classroom moment, but trust me, it spirals pretty quickly. So, the big question is, what happens next? Does he get away with it? Well, not exactly. He still gets a bit of a penalty, but the story pulls a fast one and introduces a much more, well, imaginative consequence. And it's one he absolutely cannot hide. And this is where it gets really clever. Every single time Shazane tells a lie, his nose grows. Yep. So from that first little lie about the homework to other ones later on, each lie literally makes the problem bigger, right there on his face. It's like a visual scorecard for his dishonesty.
You know, as a storytelling trick, this is just genius. Instead of a boring lecture like lying is bad, the story turns dishonesty into a physical, visible, and yeah, pretty embarrassing problem. It's such a smart way to show that you can't run from a lie when it's, literally written all over your face.
And the way it all wraps up is just as powerful. The second Shazan finally tells the truth, poof, his nose goes right back to normal. The story then leaves us with this incredible quote from Hazrat Ali, which basically says it's way better to lose while being honest than to win by telling a lie. What a takeaway. Okay, so we've looked at that internal struggle with honesty. Now let's shift gears to a more external conflict. That classic tension between, stuff and people. Our next story asks a really simple but profound question. What's more valuable, a little bit of money or a good friend?
All right, so here's the situation. There are 2 friends, Ali and Ahmed. Ali's got a motorbike, and Ahmed needs a lift to school. Simple, right? But Ali says no. Why? Because petrol is expensive, and he thinks it'll be a waste. And just like that, a tiny bit of money becomes more important than helping a friend. So what's the result of this? Well, Ali saves a tiny amount of money on petrol, but his friend, Ahmed, is left behind and has to walk. It's a simple act, but it creates this instant and very real distance between them.
Now, the great thing about this story is that it doesn't just leave you with the problem. It actually gives you a roadmap to fix it. It breaks it down into 3 clear steps. First, Ali has to realize that his friendship is worth more than gas money. Second, he gives a real, sincere apology. I was selfish. And third, they come up with a plan together, agreeing to share the cost. It's a fantastic little guide for how to make things right.
And the lesson here is just so clear and simple. The characters figure it out themselves. You can put a price on petrol, but friendship, that's priceless. It's just a great reminder to always put people before things.
Okay, for our last story, we're going to look at something we all do every day, eating. But this story takes that simple act and turns it into a much deeper conversation about strength, about responsibility, and how what we eat fuels not just our bodies, but who we are. The whole story revolves around this concept of tayyib food. And what does that mean? Well, the story explains it's not just about food that tastes good. It's about food that is clean, healthy, and pure. It's really a principle that pushes you to think about what you're putting into your body. So the story sets up this really clear comparison between 2 friends. One kid loves his junk food, burgers, chips, you name it, and he's always feeling kind of tired and weak. The other friend eats this tayyib food, and he's full of strength and energy. It's a classic choice, right? A little bit of tasty fun now versus feeling strong and healthy in the long run. And then, the story gives us a real test. A cat gets stuck up in a tree. The junk food fan,
He just doesn't have the strength to climb up and help. But Zaya, the one with the healthy diet, he's got the energy, he scrambles up that tree and he saves the cat. It's this perfect, dramatic moment that shows how these choices actually matter in the real world.
This whole event leads to a really profound realization for the other boy. This story presents this idea that your body is a gift from Allah, and taking care of it is actually a form of worship, or ibadah. That's a huge shift in thinking, right? It turns eating healthy from something you have to do into a meaningful, spiritual act.
So we've looked at 3 different stories. One about lies, one about friendship, and one about food. On the surface, they seem pretty different. But when you take a step back and look at them all together, you start to see this really clear pattern in how they're teaching these big lessons.
What these stories do so well is they boil down these big, complex virtues into simple, powerful truths. You know, honesty has real, tangible results. Friendship and generosity are worth way more than stuff. And taking care of your physical health is actually a spiritual responsibility. And the key thing is, they show how all these big ideas come from the little, simple choices we make every single day, choices even a kid can understand. The real common thread here is the method. These stories don't just stand there and preach at you, they show you. They take these abstract ideas, like honesty or generosity, and make them totally concrete with simple plots and really clear visual consequences. I mean, a nose that grows, a friend left behind, a cat getting rescued from a tree. Those images stick with you in a way a lecture never could. And all of this kind of leaves us with one last big question to chew on. In this super fast-paced, noisy digital world we live in, what can we really learn from the power of a simple, well-told moral story? You know, maybe what these modern fables are telling us is that in an age of constant distraction, things like clarity, simplicity, and a focus on what truly matters, or maybe those are the things we need more than ever.